Welcome to this video on sketch constraints, where you will learn how to apply constraints to a sketch to lock down key features in a parametric design in Fusion 360. The constraint features in the sketch environment let you align existing sketch geometry that is relative to other existing sketch geometry or the coordinate system. There are a number of constraints you can use, and each is dependent on the selected geometry, whether they are lineal, radial, or point. And the aim is to limit the movement of the sketch features based on your design intent before applying dimensions to really lock down the design. For instance, with this line you can currently drag the endpoints and the line itself in any direction you wish, which is good when exploring form, although now you want to start locking things in place to limit its movement and refine your design. To lock this sketch in place, you may first want to apply a vertical and midpoint constraint so that it can only move in a vertical direction and is centered around a common point that can also be used for subsequent sketches and components. Now if we try and drag the endpoints, you can see they are limited to movement in the vertical direction and their respective distances remain equal from the origin. Likewise, we cannot drag this line as it is constrained to the origin point. You can now see how constraints can help control your design by limiting its movement with respect to other sketch geometry or the origin. As a best practice, you should attempt to constrain your sketch so that it aligns with the origin. By doing so, all other sketches and components you create will have a common reference point, helping to build more unified, consistent, and manageable designs. In this case, you should first constrain this construction geometry as it is a central feature which the other sketch entities are based around. At first glance, this geometry already appears to be vertical, although if we apply a vertical constraint by selecting it from the toolbar, then the line itself, we can see a slight shift and a vertical constraint symbol which indicates this was not the case. This is a note that although geometry may appear to be constrained, it is best to apply the constraints to confirm. Fusion 360 will then remain in this constraint type, so to exit, press Escape on your keyboard. You can also pre-select geometry by left-clicking to select the first, and whilst holding Shift on your keyboard, select the other feature. Those that have been selected will be displayed in the bottom right-hand side of the Fusion 360 canvas. With this pre-selected geometry, click the midpoint constraint from the toolbar. This will place the construction line's midpoint to sit exactly on the origin point, and again, with the respective constraint icon now present. With the base reference feature constrained, you can now begin to constrain other sketch geometry. One other tip is that if you pre-select geometry, then right-click to open the marking menu, Fusion 360 will only display respective constraints that can be placed. For instance, here I will select this arc and the line by again holding Shift, then right-click to bring up the marking menu. You can see the only applicable constraint options for these selected geometry types, so go ahead and click on Tangent. Finally, by adding an unequal constraint to certain features, you only need to apply dimension to one, and if the value is changed, these will automatically propagate to all equal instances. One note here is that if you ever find your sketch becoming too busy with the place constraint symbols, then you can always hide these from the sketch palette. Now you have your base constraints placed, you can now look to add dimensions to fully constrain and define your design. Fusion 360 also has the capabilities to place automatic constraints to help speed up your workflow. In this example, if you draw a new line that is connected to the end of this existing line and drag away, you can see this blue perpendicular symbol where the two sketch entities meet. What you are seeing is just a preview of the automatic constraint, as you are currently still free to move this particular feature in space. It is only when you click to place the geometry with the preview visible that the constraint will be placed, as confirmed by the respective constraint symbol. Now if you attempt to drag the endpoint, this is locked or constrained to that respective constraint. You can do this for any number of constraints in your design, for example with this midpoint and subsequent perpendicular constraint. And as a quick tip, you can also temporarily disable this by holding Ctrl or Command on a Mac, then continuing with your design. This feature helps you speed up your workflow by creating these constraints without any additional subsequent steps. Finally, if you ever find you've made a mistake or wish to remove a constraint, you can always select the respective constraint icon or select multiple by holding Shift on your keyboard and press Delete on your keyboard, or right-click and select Delete. Now you know how to apply constraints to a sketch to lock down key features in a parametric design in Fusion 360. Thanks for watching.